From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello and a very, very Merry Christmas to you, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson, and if I'm not mistaken, I think we have someone over the phone. Do we?
Ho, ho, ho.
Oh,
That's
brother.
what I call the women that I meet with. This is the hardest, baddest, sexiest man on cable access TV. And boy, Jamie, have I been productive today, and I'm going to be productive today and tomorrow because I got a lot of mistletoe to go to. So, the hardest, baddest, sexiest man on cable access TV can only give you 1 hour of his time because this man has got a lot of eggnog to drink and a lot of women to decorate. So, let's get on with it. This is a special
please.
On wishing all a Merry Christmas. And also the fact that, remember, it's not about gifts, ladies and gentlemen. It's about what you can get from your heart and what you can give to people that are out there. Because, remember this, there are people less fortunate than you out there in the world. So think of them as you're going through Christmas as well. So, Jamie.
Yes.
The question that I have for you right now.
Mm-hmm.
What is your wish list for the Knicks, the Nets, the Giants, the Jets,
Right.
the Rangers, the Devils, and the Islanders?
Well,
What
that
is
is-
your wish list for these people?
All right, let's go.
Because today is Christmas Eve, and,
Yeah.
you know.
As far as a Christmas wish list for the Knicks, first and foremost, for the tyranny of James Dolan to finally end. That's off the court. On the court, I'd like to see them get an elite point guard. I'd like to see them get a go-to guy that can take all of the pressure off of Kristaps Porzingis. And quite frankly, I think they could use another shooting guard in there. I think they could use a whole upgrade in that backcourt. To be honest with you, I think they have enough height and length.
He's the
but
man.
Quite frankly, backcourt wise, they have got a major overhaul to do.
Is Zion Williams one of the men that you'd like to have on your team?
Zion Williamson would be the guy that would put the Knicks hopefully in the right direction. But the way things are going for them now, it doesn't look like they're going to get that first pick. But then again, it's only December. We're going to have to wait until they have the lottery in May to find out who's going to get that first pick. But right now, Zion Williamson is the guy that everyone is looking for. And probably R.J. Barrett, his teammate at Duke as well.
Well, right now, if they had to do the draft today, they would be in fourth. They're the fourth losingest team in the league. So, yeah, they do have a good shot. You know, if they're doing the ball system, I don't know what they're doing because they said that they were going to do something different. But Kevin Knox is improving every time, and there are some players on that team that you can't. Again, they're very young right now. They're young and green, so you got to give them a little bit of at least another year or so to get that. You got to give them at least 3 years to actually say, okay, well, now they've done something. But
Kevin Knox has had his moments. Let's put it that way.
I agree with you to a certain extent. You know, they do need one or two other players, and, you know, depending upon what they do in the draft this year and who's going to leave and who's going to stay and who's coming. Now with the Nets, the Brooklyn Nets, what do you wish for them?
My wish for the Brooklyn Nets, a go-to guy at small forward, and I think they could use somebody that can take a little pressure off of Jared Allen in the middle, someone with a little more height. Because right now, Jared Allen has done a lot of growing up before the eyes of Nets fans. I mean, the kid had the balls to block LeBron James' shot in a game most recently. And that was the play right there. We always knew that he was going to be a good player for them, but that rejection of LeBron was probably that signature moment that he had for himself this season. And I think the kid has nowhere to go but up right now. If you include him and Spencer Dinwiddie, those are two guys that the Nets could probably not necessarily build around, but build with down the road. Now, what do the Nets really need under their Christmas tree? I still say that they need a go-to guy at small forward that can really take the load off of those two young men. And I think that they could use a little bit more bench help.
And now we go to hockey. You know what? Let's go to the New York football teams. Right now, what do you think? What is your football list for them? Wish list for them?
For the Jets or the Giants?
Both. Try with the Giants first.
The Giants, that's easy. Good health for Odell Beckham Jr. and Sterling Shepard. That's number one. Number two, get a young quarterback who can take over for Eli Manning after next season, because it's looking more and more like the Giants are going to make Eli the starter next season. Offensive line help all across the way. And a pass rusher.
Is there one particular player that can improve that team?
I don't think it's one particular player. I think it's going to have to take a plethora of players for them.
But if you had to choose one player,
Joey Bosa.
Okay. All right.
Sorry about that. I'm talking about Nick Bosa. Joey's his older brother. Joey plays for the Chargers. Nick Bosa from Ohio State University is the one kid that would probably solve their problems on that line.
Now, for the Jets.
For the Jets, an every down running back. Sorry, but Elijah McGuire and Bilal Powell can only do so much for those guys. They need an every down back like the Giants have with Saquon Barkley to take the pressure off of Sam Darnold. So they need an every down back. They need a number one receiver, a little bit more help on the offensive line, and I would say they would need one extra pass rusher to support Leonard Williams.
Is there that one player? What would be that one player that can help the Jets going in that direction?
Nick Bosa.
Oh, again with him. Okay.
Nick Bosa right now could be the best defensive prospect in this year's draft.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, for the Knicks, what would be that one player? Who would be Zion Williams?
It would definitely be Zion Williamson.
Now, they
need an intimidator in the middle.
For the Nets, who would be that one player for the Nets?
It depends on where they finish in the regular season. And at this rate, the Nets would probably get a number 11 or number 12 pick in the draft, maybe 13 or 14. If I had to pick one guy, though, R.J. Barrett, maybe?
Okay.
Who's Zion's teammate over at Duke?
I mean, you've got some damn good guards on that team.
Yeah.
I mean, D'Angelo Russell's no slouch, and the other guys are no slouches either.
Mm-hmm.
But will they be there next year? That's a whole different topic.
Yeah, because Russell isn't his walk year now.
A lot of teams will pick him because he may not play the greatest defense in the world, but he does give you good offensive stats.
Yeah,
but
good scorer. He has height. He has length. So he could probably be a matchup problem for someone's opposing guard offensively.
Now, how about the hockey? How about hockey?
Right
What's
now,
your wish
as far as
list
the
for them
Rangers
right
are
now?
concerned, I would say that they would need a go-to guy for their power play, someone who can really get the big goal for them. When they're in the man advantage.
And that would be that one player that you would need to get them
Yeah.
over the hump.
I think they need a power play quarterback. I think they also need a little bit more burliness on their line. I think they would need an extra defender as well, an extra defenseman, and I definitely need that they have to get some body strength on the line.
Who would be that one player that could help in that direction that you can get?
If I were to go scrounging around for a free agent, it would be really nice to see Dustin Byfuglien of the Winnipeg Jets man that line for the Rangers. He's a big, strongly built guy who could really bully a lot of guys on that ice when it comes to power play material.
How about Devils?
The Devils, I think they would need a little bit more youth. Overall, I think they need some youth. And if anything, they're one of the youngest teams in the league right now, but maybe, just maybe, a guy who can be a number one scorer for them, or a number two support system for them. That's exactly what the Devils need. The Devils need a number two guy after Taylor Hall, because Taylor Hall probably is their go-to guy when it comes to trying to get the big goal. And also Nico Hischier has been a really great setup guy for them. But I would think that the Devils need a number two scorer in order to really snap themselves out of their slump. They're slumping really badly right now. They're 10 games under 500 for the year.
And what would your wish list be for that one person?
Well, if I were living in a fantasy world, Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby. But if I were to be a little bit more realistic, maybe Patrick Kane from the Blackhawks. Otherwise, they would have to look into the draft right now to see exactly what they could look for.
The Icelanders.
Yes, thank you so much for making the Steve Summers reference. As far as the Islanders are concerned, I would think that they would need some help on the wings. I mean, as much as they've been battling this season, I think they would need a little bit more help on the wing in order to get them to that next level. Who's going to be that guy? Right now, I couldn't even begin to tell you.
Would it have to be through the draft, or would it have to be through a trade or free agency?
If they can get that one big free agent guy, then maybe they might be able to get that guy on the wing that they need.
And other teams that are out there right now, I mean, there's a lot of chit-chat going out. Now, wait, we forgot baseball.
Yep.
In baseball, the mighty Mets getting all these guys, ex-Yankees, a catcher.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to get the Mariners catcher, I think, or the Marlins catcher.
Yeah, they wanted JT Realmuto, but the Marlins wanted way too much. They wanted either Michael Conforto or Brandon Nimmo or Noah Syndergaard. They wanted a combination of those two guys, and the Mets just were not going to give up any of their prime assets just to get Realmuto. So what did the Mets do? They decided to go on the cheap a little bit, and they decided to bring in Wilson Ramos.
Well, here's the thing with that, and I think he's on his walk year right now.
Wilson Ramos?
Next year,
Or
the
Real
guy that messed
Muto?
with- yeah.
Yeah,
He-
JT
next
Real
year
Muto,
is
I know
his
next year he's going to be in his walk year.
Yeah, next year is going to be in his walk year, and if they don't get rid of him this year, they're not going to get nothing at all for him.
Mm-hmm.
So
There's also the issue of whether the Mets are willing to give up a high draft pick in order to bring in Real Muto next season. But the Yankees are already 3 deep at catcher right now. They already have Ramos. They already have Travis d'Arnaud, who they gave a new contract to. And they also have Kevin Plawecki. So something's going to have to give by next season. Maybe they're going to have to trade Plawecki in a deal to try and get some back end of the bullpen help.
The Yankees were interested in him as well.
Yeah.
So I'm going, wait a minute. So let's say you do get him, then you would get rid of Sanchez?
See, that would not be such a bright idea. All because Gary Sanchez had his problems behind the plate, the fans want to sound the alarm. You don't trade a guy like Sanchez and just expect to get better defensively at catcher. Sanchez is a very good player. Has he had his problems behind the plate? Yeah, he has. But at the same time, he can throw guys out. When he's 100% healthy, he could probably move a little bit quicker behind the plate. But you cannot give up a guy of his power, especially offensively, just for the sake of trying to improve behind the plate. You just don't do it.
Would you try to switch him to first base, like most catchers go?
No. Gary Sanchez is not a first baseman. He is strictly a catcher, and I would go with him as the everyday catcher for as long as the Yankees want. Okay. If they get rid of him, it's a mistake. I'm telling you right now. You can't replace power like his with somebody else.
But the guy that you mentioned, doesn't he have power too?
Real Muto has some power, but he's not the type of power hitter that Sanchez is. Gary Sanchez has 30 to 35 home run potential. The most that JT Real Muto can do behind the plate, offensively that is maybe 20 home runs a season.
So he's a better defensive catcher. I think
he had about 24 home runs this past year.
He's a better defensive catcher.
And he's a better defensive catcher. But offensively, you just don't trade a guy like Sanchez.
But would you consider the fact that the Yankees are stacked at hitting right now?
Oh, they're definitely stacked at hitting. But you can never have too much hitting, though.
Especially if they get Manny Machado.
Yeah. And Machado made it clear he's going to decide until after the start of the new year to see where he wants to go, whether it's to the Yankees or the White Sox or the Phillies. Although from what I heard, he's telling his friends if the Yankees make a really attractive offer, he's going to pick the Yankees.
Well, he's 26 years old.
Yep.
If they give him a 10-year contract, he'll be 36.
If I'm the Yankees, I would steer clear of giving him a 10-year deal.
So let's say they do. You have 7 good years with him.
Then it would be a huge judgment and error on their part.
You have 7 good years with him. If there's no major injuries with him, you actually have 7 good years with him.
If they're lucky. That's why I would probably offer him a 7-year deal. You can't give him a 10-year contract. He's not.
A lot of teams would offer a 10-year. That's the thing. They'd rather win now, and then
their problem,
whatever
and that's
is
also
left
their biggest
over,
mistake,
whatever
too.
he can do later on, they'll try to build around him or try to get rid of him.
We've already seen the mistakes that have been made with 10-year contracts. I mean, look at what's happened with A-Rod. He couldn't last the entire 10 years. He wound up getting released in his 9th year of his deal. Look at Albert Pujols, too. He hasn't even been able to play first base full time with the Angels, and he's lasted 7 years. Robinson Cano was literally halfway through his 10-year contract when the Mariners finally decided to trade him.
Well, it's because of the PE that they caught in him, and he's been hurt. But other than that, he's got luggage with him. Cano's got luggage.
Yeah, he's got major luggage.
The thing is, you have to remember something. When you get Machado, and let's say you get him for 10 years, you're looking, let's say, 5 good years of you making the playoffs with him, Stanton, and Guillermo, or what's his name? I forgot.
You talking about Gleyber Torres?
Yeah, Judge.
And also Aaron Judge, yeah.
So, and then whoever else the Yankees have on that team.
All the more reason why I give him a shorter deal. Giving him
5
a
years,
10-year contract is bad management.
I understand that, but look, think of it the way they would think of it. And I've heard this from other programs. When GM goes to their shows and on TV, and that is, you figure that you'll get 5 or 6 years, 5 or 6 good years if nothing happens to this kid. And then the rest they're willing to suck up because they're winning now. Because remember, it's about the now, not about the later. The only time you're worried about the later is when you're trying to develop players. When you're trying to win in the now, you're willing to make that deal for 10 years and say, okay, well, we want to win now, and he's going to give us at least 5 or 6 years because he's still a young guy. He's still 26 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time he's 30, 32, he's still a young guy, relatively a young guy at that time. Now, once you hit 35, 36, 37, 38, depending upon how well you maintain your body and don't lose your mobility and you don't have any major injuries, if you're not in decline, you're still good. Whatever you can get out of that kid, you're going to get out of it. And that's how most GMs think. And with the Yankees now, if you think about it, they're built to win now.
Yeah, we do know that they're built to win now.
And if you can get a guy like that to win now for you, that means you can get back to back to back. Yeah, you can get, 3 or 4 titles within the last 8 years or 7 years?
Well, Yankee fans can only hope.
Yeah, but I'm saying in general, you would assume that would be the idea, that if everything goes the way it's supposed to, you have at least a solid rock team that you'll always be in contention, and you should be able to win in the World Series at least 3 out of the 7 times, let's say. You should be able to win enough championships to go and say, okay, I validate the fact that, yeah, we did pay him 10 years, but he was worth it because he got us over the hump, and he did this and he did that. Now, mind you, his pitching goes behind it and so on, because they even signed Chapman for, I think, another 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But a guy like that wants a 10-year contract, and he will get a 10-year contract on any team. Now, do you take the risk at $10 million, $100 million for 10 years?
No. I'm telling you, 10-year contracts are a bad idea. You got to look at past history. If you give these guys 10-year contracts, they just don't last.
They last by how long?
And their skills take such a drastic decline that, looking back on it, was it really worth it? I mean, take Albert Pujols, for example. Albert Pujols got a 10-year deal from the Angels. You know how many playoff games Albert Pujols has played with the Angels for? 3.
3.
3
At what
playoff
age
games
did Albert Pujols
for a
go
guy
to the Angels?
who signed a 10-year deal and has now gone past 7 years of that 10-year deal.
Okay, but
What
at
about
what
A-Rod?
age?
A-Rod had his moments. He won a couple of MVPs. He won that championship all by his 6th season. Oh, actually by his 2nd season, because he signed another 10-year deal with the Yanks. But then by the time he reached 2015 or 2016, his skills took a major decline.
Again, I ask you, at what age did Albert
See, you can't put a
Pujols...
timetable on that because it depends on the individual.
At what age did he go to the Angels?
He went to the Yankees.
I'm talking about
on
Pujols.
15 years ago.
I'm talking about Pujols. Was he 26, 27? Was he in his 30s?
He was in his late 20s.
He was in his late 20s.
Yeah.
So Pujols gave
he
them.
He was 32 when he signed his 10-year deal.
He was 32. So again, you're talking about a 26-year-old guy compared to a 32-year-old guy. A 32-year-old guy, like you said, has about 4 or 5 years, good years. His major years will be 3.
It's not a guarantee that he's going to last that long, though.
Again,
no guarantee
like I said,
he's going to last that long.
like I just
and
said,
I'll tell you right now, if the Yankees
GM
are stupid enough to give him another 10-year deal, especially after the brutal mistake that they made giving A-Rod a 10-year deal, then that's even worse management than when they gave A-Rod that 10-year deal a decade ago. You just don't do it, man.
But again, from a fan point of view, yes, but you have to think of it from their perspective. As I said, and I'll reiterate again, if you sign a guy like Machado, he's 26 years old, and he's still climbing at his peak right now. So you figure, let's say, at 32, by the time he hits 32, far barring any major injuries, by the time he hits 32 years old, and he starts to sink down. So you figure you have this guy who's in his prime. And you're hoping and you're praying that particular person and the whole team in general will make it to the playoffs every year and will win you at least 3 World Series or 4 World Series.
That's not a guarantee either.
Again, but this is how the way the GM process is.
Title,
that's why they give them 10-year contracts, because then they'll say, okay, well, he won us, let's say, 4 World Series or 3 World Series. We got 3 World Series out of him, and we got 5 playoffs out of him. So you know what? Let's say the next 3 years he could be on his decline. Okay, we'll take it because we won in the here and now. They're not looking for later. They're looking for now. Remember how a team wants. If you're set up to win now, you're going to get the best player to get you over that hump to win now and for existing later years. After he gets, let's say, 33, 34, you don't care how old he is later on because he already did his job. He already did his job in the beginning years. You said it correctly. It's not guaranteed, but that's what a GM hopes for. That's what I'm trying to get you into the mindset of, okay, I may not agree with, as a GM and a person that's paying him money, I don't agree with a 10-year contract. As a baseball player, if I can protect my rear end for 10 years, to get a guaranteed contract for 10 years, yeah, you're damn right. I'm going to sign for a 10-year contract, and I'm going to get whatever I can.
And that's the owner and general manager's worst mistake that they could make.
But remember what I just said about the general manager and the owner. They are willing to do that because of the first 5 to 7 years that you may get out of him. After that, the other 3 years that you may get, they don't care about the other 3. They care about what's happening through 1 through 7, depending upon how old he is. Machado's 26 years old. So you're hoping that you can get at least seven good years out of him. When you sign Albert Pujols for 10 years, you're hoping that you get at least 4 or 5 years. 7 times, but 9 out of 10 times you're hoping for at least 5. And then the next 5 years, you're hoping that your minor league system is good enough that you can put people around him that can protect him, but still be enough of a threat within that age time difference. And that's what you have to look at, the age and what he may be able to produce. Because even when you get someone from the draft, unless he's an exceptional player like Kevin Knox, you're looking at a diamond in the rough. He's not a very explosive player like the other people that were 1 through 8 that are doing some kind of impact now. But you're looking at Kevin Knox as, okay, he has the potential at 19 years old, and if you give him 2 more years, he's going to be that blow-up star. The same way with anybody else. You want that player. You're looking at, when you draft the minor league system, even the baseball in the minor league system, when you recruit that person in whatever position you ask for, you're recruiting him for what he may be able to do. Not what he can do, but what he can do. What he can do for you now and what he may be able to do for you in the future. Now, let's say in 2 years or 3 years he bombs completely. Then you've paid him enough to go, okay, I've had enough with him. But when you sign a 10-year contract at a major league level, such as a Manny Machado level at 26 years old, you're expecting to get at least 5 to 7 good years out of him. And whatever's left, like I said before, that's the way you got. I may not agree with it. I'm like you. I don't believe in 10-year contracts. But if that's what you have to get him, is he worth getting it? Because other teams are willing to pay that and to give him that amount of years. So if that's the going rate, you're getting at least 5 to 7 good years out of him. Don't you think that's worth it?
I just see it as horrible, horrible management.
I know, but if you can get 5 to 7 good years out of him, don't you think that's worth it?
Well, if I think that I can get 5 to 7 good years out of him, why can't I just sign him for 5 years or for 7 years? I'd much rather sign him for just 5.
Again, you're not answering my question. My question to you is, if you give him a 10-year contract and you can get 5 to 7 good years out of him, would you sign the 10 years, yes or no?
I would never, ever do such a thing. No way.
Not even if you can get 5 to 7 good years out of him?
Not even close. It's horrible management.
Other teams are willing to do it.
And that's their biggest blunder.
All the other teams that are going for this dude are saying 10 years.
That's, you know
9
what?
years
That's their
tops.
choice. And that's also their biggest blunder.
How is it their biggest blunder if, like I said before, if you can get 5 to 7 good years out of the kid, and then you're throwing the other 3 away? That's fine. I've done my job because that guy gotten you 5 to 7 good years. That's the way to think. That's the way you're thinking. You're thinking as, well, I'd rather sign him for 5 years and then that's it.
No, I'm thinking I have to do the prudent thing
the
and
rate
just
for him
give
is
the guy
right now. His
more
rate is
than
7
fair
to 10
offer.
years.
10 years is awful, awful thinking because you don't know if this guy is going to be able to last even 1 year out of that 10-year deal. It's just not the right thing to do,
and I'm going to repeat the same thing. You're hoping that he will last 5. That you're projecting that he's going to give you 5 to 7 good years. You're projecting. That is your projection. It's just like the stock market, just like everything else in the world. You're projecting that person is going to do well for you within a certain time frame. Just like a boxer, you would figure that his peak years between 18, he learns everything at 18. By the time he hits 22, from 22 to 25 is his prime years, or 22 to 27 is his prime year. After 29 or after 28 to 35, that's it. He's done.
All I'm going to say is you'll never see the Red Sox do anything that's stupid. And you'll never see the Chicago Cubs in this modern era do anything that's stupid. Because they've got bosses that quite frankly know better than that. They would never, ever, ever do anything that gullible.
If they needed him
and they
get
don't
over
need
the
him,
hump,
they already
would
have
do it.
guys set
They
at
would
shortstop.
do it. If you needed someone to get you over that hump, you got to remember, right now the Boston Red Sox are stacked. They're stacked with pitching, and they won the World Series already.
Yes, we know that.
Okay? So, and they've won within the last 2000 decade. They've won what? Three?
The last
World
15
Series
years,
from
they've won
2000?
4 titles.
From 2000 to now, they've won about 3, right?
4.
Okay. Now, from that time frame, the Boston Red Sox, how many of them are originals from when they won the World Series from the year 2000 and up?
The only guy that's been there for the last, 3 titles is Dustin Pedroia.
How old is he?
He's in his early 30s.
And so Dustin Pedroia, he's got a how many year contract?
I think he's signed for at least 6 or 7 years.
When they first got him, I'm sure that he. Now remember, this is the time frame that we're living.
Year. His knee was killing him.
The only Yankee that I could recall that signed for 10 years, besides A-Rod, was Dave Winfield.
Yeah.
And with Dave Winfield, you got at least 3 World Series out of him.
Actually,
and you got enough playoffs out of him.
1.
Well, you got enough playoffs out of him, and he did try to get you over the hump.
They only got that 1981 World Series out of him, the famous 1-for-21 series that he had against the Dodgers.
But look at his bat, look at his statistics, and look at the era at that time frame. If they had a playoff like they do now, don't you think it would have been worth it? That's the thing.
We're dealing in hypotheticals here.
But
There's
again,
no way of knowing what he could have done.
You're right, but you're dealing with a playoff system, and you're dealing with a whole new kettle of fish. That's how come they're going, I want 10 years. And they'll give it to them. There's been a lot of other players that there aren't that many players within that time frame, but right now that's the going rate, 7 to 10 years. I wouldn't give him 10 years. I'm with you. I wouldn't give him 10 years. But the Yankees haven't won a World Series in a while, and they need to make a big splash, even though I don't think so. But I think they need to make more of a big splash when it comes to pitching, because I think the hitting's there. Yeah. Even though the Boston Red Sox, with their pitching, made them look very weak at hitting.
Do you know how much they could have used that money on for back end of the bullpen help, like they could potentially use for Manny Machado? They could have brought back Andrew Miller to help them with their bullpen. Instead, Andrew Miller is a St. Louis Cardinal now. They could have brought back any other elite reliever to help that back end of the bullpen, and instead they're worried about Manny Machado being their everyday shortstop because Didi Gregorius is hurt. When they could have just moved Gleyber Torres over to shortstop, and Daniel Murphy was available. Not anymore. He's a Colorado Rocky now. Daniel Murphy would have been good for them to be the second baseman. Now, their options are limited.
And what about that guy that the Toronto Blue Jays let go?
Troy Tulowitzki?
Yeah.
From what I understand, he's getting interest from the Pirates.
He's getting a lot of interest from a lot of teams.
Yeah.
And he's 32 years old, but he'll only get a 1 or 2 year contract top.
Because his knees are killing him.
And plus, the Toronto Blue Jays are paying the majority of his contract.
Mm-hmm. For the last 2 years.
So you would take a chance on him. Why not? I mean, he seems to be healthy now.
Is he really healthy? Because he barely played this year. Yeah, he really is
healthy. From the last article that I read upon him, I mean, he had bad knees and everything, but he's ready to rock and roll now. He's healthy. He's healthier more than he's ever been.
I don't even know if he can cut it as a designated hitter anymore, to be honest with you. I would not touch him.
If you're going to grab him, remember you're getting him at the minimal salary. You don't have to pay him top money.
I understand that, Hector, but at the same time, he missed an entire season because of his knees.
He's playing well now, and he says he's not being bothered with the knee.
Even on Yankee Stadium field of play for a whole year. I wouldn't touch him.
If they need him to just do spot plays, to be a spotter, and not be the everyday person, yeah, I would grab him. Why not? Try him out. What have you got to lose? You're just paying him minimum wage. You're just paying minimum.
That's what you've got to lose. Even with these reclamation projects, you just cannot risk it. Because if he stinks at the plate, like he has his last few years with the Blue Jays,
you're not paying him much.
Then it's going to be $500,000 wasted.
So? Yeah, so?
Hector, they need a guy to play shortstop every single time. They don't need a back end of the bench guy like Troy Tulowitzki. It's not cutting it for them.
I understand that, but you're not thinking of it realistically. You remember, everything is about dollars and cents as well. And he's a 3-time or 4-time All-Star. He's won a couple of Golden Gloves.
That's
it's
past
not like
history,
you're getting
man. That's
someone
not saying he's going to do that again in 2019.
He's a nobody. He's a scrub. This guy has done something when he's healthy.
I'm not saying he's
and
a
you're
scrub.
presuming
I'm
that
saying that
if he's
goods.
playing on the team now, but remember something, he's playing on the team now. He's trying out for teams right now, and he's looking pretty good. That means nothing's hurting him right now.
There's no guarantee he's going to look good in a game.
Remember, he's got to be checked out by doctors. If he wasn't that good enough to be on that field, you don't think these teams are getting medical reports and so on? Oh, he's got a bad knee, so let's go after him. He's got to give up his medical reports to these teams.
I would not chance it. I wouldn't do it.
Well, that's the difference between you and some of these GMs. They're willing to, because remember, you're not paying much for this guy. They're allowed a certain exemption of money that you have to spend on each level. Toronto's paying the majority of his. He's flipped the Toronto Blue Jays are flipping his bill. So you know what? If you can get him for $5,000 or $6,000 or whatever, he's on the cheap. You know what? Grab him. You got nothing to lose. And they've done that with it, and that wouldn't be the first time they've done it. That any team's done that, where they'll spend like 10, 50 for 10, 15 grand. That's nothing to these guys. Even $5 million, $10 million. That's a job. That's a bucket to them.
$10 million is way too much.
$100 million.
$10 million is way too much for the guy.
Like I said, you're dealing with major league teams. All the teams that you have out there, $10 million is nothing to these guys. That's a drop in the bucket. I don't know what math you've learned, but I'm telling you, these guys have talked and talked, and you listen to enough.
$10 million for a guy with damaged knees is horrible, horrible management.
You've listened to enough sports. You've heard GMs go on these
desperate.
You've heard GM go on these sports talks, whether it's on TV or on the radio. You've heard these guys, and they'll say, we're willing to take a chance because he's he may be a high-risk player, but we're willing to pay him a certain amount of money because it's low risk for them. So if he's low risk, he's got to give up his medical reports to everybody to say, yes, I'm fine now. I'm fine. There is always going to be some potential of this guy, and any guy that has problems like that, you're just taking, it's like playing the lotto. You're either going to hit or you're either going to miss. You're paying $1 every time, or $2, or $3, depending upon which lotto you're playing, every other day, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, let's say, you're paying $1 to $3 every week to see if you're able to win the big jackpot. So it's the same thing with this guy, or with people like him. You'll even hear him say he's low risk. You know what? He may be high risk. We're not going to pay him that much. Let's give him a shot and let's try him out. Would I give him the chance? Yeah, because I'm not losing or gaining anything. But do the Mets. What do you think should be? What do you think the Yankees should get and the Mets should get? And what would be your wish list for them?
Well, my wish list for the Yankees is easy. Back end of the bullpen help. That's number one. They look like they're stacked at starting pitcher because right now they're 7 deep in the starting rotation, including Sonny Gray and Jordan Montgomery, who's coming off a Tommy John surgery. I would say that I could probably get a first baseman for the Yankees as well. And maybe a little bit more help on the bench, although the way they're stacked in the outfield and at second and at third, they might need a little bit more bench help. Maybe they don't need any bench help for the infield. But right now, for the Yankees, bullpen and a first baseman would be the way to go for the Yanks. As far as the Mets, though, definitely a first baseman. I would say get a right fielder and a fourth and fifth starter without question, and also back end of the bullpen help.
Who would be that one guy that you really need?
Well,
that you would want?
As far as a starting pitcher?
No, any position.
At any
position? Who would be that one guy that you'd want on your team?
As far as
who would be that one guy
on
your wish list that you would want on your team right now?
They've had Peter Alonso in the minor leagues the longest time without ever even so much as giving him a consideration for a promotion. Make Peter Alonso the first baseman. That's number one. Number two, Dallas Keuchel is still available as a starting pitcher. Why not give him a chance at a starter's position? Maybe make him the number 4 or number 5 guy. Can you imagine him with Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard and Zach Wheeler? That's a really strong quartet that the Mets would have right there. As far as right field, I'd be dreaming if I said Bryce Harper, but A.J. Pollock has been mentioned quite a bit. And A.J. Pollock is the Connecticut kid that played 7 years with the Colorado Rockies. Maybe make him the right fielder if Bryce Harper is out of commission, availability-wise. As far as the bullpen is concerned, they strengthened it quite a bit when they got Jody Familia back in their bullpen over the fall. So you add him along with Edwin Diaz and Robert Gesellman and Seth Lugo. That's a nice quartet in the bullpen to have, but I still think that they need 3 more guys in order to make them a little bit stronger. As far as who to get, there's a plethora of guys out there that they could probably go for. I love the Mets getting Wilson Ramos. I mean, even though he's the cheap alternative, he's still a pretty decent power guy who can frame pitches pretty well for his pitchers. So,
yeah.
Other than that, that's pretty much it.
So for the Mets, it would be your first pick would be offense or defense.
First pick would definitely be another hitter, a power hitter.
What position?
Especially at first base and in the outfield, specifically right field.
Okay, and so this is for the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
Now for the Yankees.
The Yankees, I still think that they need to fill that hole at first base because Greg Bird and Luke Voit can only do that for them for so long. So as far as what they could do elsewhere to get a first baseman, I just don't see that much out there. So it could be that they may have to make Luke Voit the everyday first baseman for now. But if the Yankees were to really, really need something, it would be a left-handed power hitter.
Yeah, because there aren't that many lefties in the league. And they got to get rid of what's his name from Boston, the guy they picked up from Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot his name. Oh, it eludes me. But last year he didn't play. They said he was going to play, but he wound up hurting himself.
Yep.
And they were going to get Cano back for him.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to make a swap for him, and I'm going, what was that guy's name? They got him from Boston. I think he was the center fielder.
The center fielder.
The center fielder for Boston.
You're not talking about Chris Young, are you?
No. It's the center for he was in Boston, and he signed a free agent contract to the Yankees.
You're talking about Ellsbury?
Jacoby Ellsbury, yeah.
He's an X factor in this whole thing. He didn't play at all last year because he had a whole assortment of injuries. Now
but that's a contract that they have to dump.
The Yankees don't know what they want to do with him.
Well, they say, again, here's another guy that's supposed to be all fine now, and they were in the run to get Cano. And that didn't happen because they were just going to swap contracts, which would have been okay by me because Cano would have fit right in. I mean, he fits in right in because as long as he's in the New York area.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, he's better off with the American League because you got the DH. So if he gives you, 2 years as a hitter, you're fine. And if he gives you a little bit of play in the infield, because Didi Gregorius is out, and then you can bring the guy from second to short and so on, and put Cano back at second. You know what? You're in, man. You're in. But Jacoby Ellsbury, again, going through the financial side of it, which you should look into it, and that is the financial side of it is the Yankees are not like the Yankees of old. Steinbrenner would have cared less about the luxury tax. If now, back then, is it the same as it is now? Yeah. It's just the amount is bigger. But back then, the money back then was the highest. I mean, Dave Winfield had the highest paid contract. And you figure that his contract compared to the early 2000s, to the late 2000s, it's a joke.
Well,
if you look at his contract, you take his contract and you compare it to the contract now, it's a joke. It's a joke. And everybody has said it. Every person has said it. At that time, it was a big contract, but in this era in time, it's as if to them $1 million is nothing. To me and to you, $1 million is something. Why? Because of our pay scale.
Right.
Of how we go. $1 million would go far for me. $1 million would go far for you.
Mm-hmm.
$1 million to these guys? That's nothing. That's like blowing their nose and wiping their rear ends with it. Back then, between the 80s and 90s, $1 million was something back then too, to some degree. Because I remember at one point, Dave Winfield's contract was the biggest contract in the league.
Yeah, and he was making all of $3 million a year.
Exactly. Now it's $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
$100 million. That's the one that Machado and Harper want to get, and they may get it too.
Mm-hmm.
10 years, $100 million, and there's going to be a $100 million ball player.
Well,
but
we got a couple of minutes left. We literally have 2 minutes left. So, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with us?
Yes. I'm going to get laid and get paid. May everybody out there have a fantastic Christmas. Be safe. And remember what Christmas stands for. You?
Me, I just want to give a special word of thanks to everyone for watching us on TV right now. Special word of thanks to you for joining us over the phone. We certainly hope that you're feeling better.
Yes.
And also, I want to give a special word of thanks to my new friend Dan, who's on the other side of the glass right now. He's been directing the show quite a bit, and he's done a really, really, really good job today. So, that's going to do it for us.
Yes.
For everyone here, I'm Jamie.
I'm Hector.
We will see you on New Year's Eve. Merry Christmas, everyone.
That's right. Well, we're going to pop the cork.
Yes,
Get
sir.
some champagne.
All right. We'll see you next week. Good night, everyone.
Night-night.